Recently, we've had some news regarding Pope Francis and his health. This is Tony. Hope you're all doing well. We're going to get into some rather curious things I discovered with regards to a document that's almost 1,000 years old from the Vatican Secret Archives that tells of something that is supposed to happen very soon. And it involves, of course, Pope Francis and the Catholic Church. At any rate, we're going to get into that and actually a lot of related stuff. In this video, we're going to be talking about the 3 days of darkness a little bit. We're going to be talking about St Malachy's Prophecy. We're going to be talking about actually a number of other things that were discovered as well with regards to the Vatican Archives and actually how it may tell us almost the exact year he's coming back. You're not going to believe this. You're going to definitely want to check this out. Of course, it is kind of weird. It's a little obscure. It could be 2027. It could be 2032. I'm actually leaning towards 2032 based on what I'm reading. It's rather interesting because there's actually something in the midst of this prediction that shows you when the midpoint is. But is the midpoint in the beginning of when it says the midpoint is, or is it in the middle of the midpoint? That's what decides what year we're actually going to be seeing him, of course, come back according to this prediction. And a lot of people don't know anything about this. So we have here, of course, Pope Francis. Apparently his condition's getting better. I was assuming this, based on all the stuff I've been researching, that he's going to be around for a few more years. He's going to be around for a few more years. You have Pope Francis thanks public for prayers in first public comments since hospitalization. Now, yesterday was Ash Wednesday, and there was actually publications that made a joke about his condition. If you can believe that, ECB apologizes for Pope Francis' Ashes post joke. Now, I went to an Ash Wednesday service yesterday. I'm sure some of you guys did. I know a lot of people, they don't go to church anymore. I can understand that because things are so crazy in this world these days, but I think it's still a good thing to do. I actually do think it's a good thing to do, although there are a lot of bad churches. Don't get me wrong. I know. I've heard all the stories. I've seen it myself. All right. But it is interesting that we have here people are making jokes, right? And, I can understand the sentiment a little bit because, of course, I wouldn't say the Catholic Church is the best, example of living a moral life. I'm not referring to the people in the church, of course. I'm referring to sort of the leadership, and I'm kind of referring to the leadership almost across the board at the top, almost everywhere. You hear scandals left and right. It doesn't matter where they're at, Protestant, Catholic, wherever, you have some new scandal, right? It just seems like every other day there is one. You even have this lady that was just recently appointed to faith office, Paula White? And she's friends with this Joni Lamb, who's right now in the midst of some huge scandal, and try to bring her into D.C. I mean, it's just like they're everywhere. There's scandals. What's interesting, though, about this, so of course he's doing better. He's thanking the public for prayers. And of course, he is doing better. He's stable now compared to previous days. He had respiratory issues. And so it looks like he is getting better, which is, I guess, good news depending on how you want to look at it. Now, I think it's good news because of what's going on with these prophecies, okay? Because he's the last guy according to the St Malachy Prophecy. I don't know if you guys know that, but it says after him is the end. So if he's gone, supposedly the end's coming, right? Now, we have here this article that recently came out. Secret Vatican book with 1,000-year-old prophecy reveals when Judgment Day will happen. An eerie link to Pope Francis' illness. 900-year-old book found. Let's see if I can get a little bit better on the screen. There we go. Vatican Secret Archives claims to predict the year. Of course, when Jesus will, of course, return. St. Malachy is credited with 12th century text, prophecy of popes. Now, of course, there's a lot of scholars, as they call themselves, that discount this text. But again, they make this, I've seen this assumption so many times with professional historians, I just got to point it out. So there was a particular pope, apparently during a conclave, that discovered this. Now, let me show you this. Which pope was this? Pope Sixtus V. And by the way, I've talked about Pope Sixtus III. We'll get into that another time. We're actually not even going to talk about that here. Pope Sixtus V took the helm. It says 442 years after the first leader in the text of St Malachy, right? So they're assuming from this that the year, let me explain this. So he apparently said, Pope Sixtus V said in 1585 that he is the axle in the midst of the sign. Now, this is actually the motto that was given to him in the prophecy. Let me show you this. And I'm going to get into this assumption that historians make that I think is completely bogus in a second here. Not every historian, but it's common. So you here you see it says here the mottos. So let me show you what's going on here. So you have this huge prophecy of popes. This is on Wikipedia. And the prophecy starts in 1143. Okay. The text was in the Vatican Secret Archives and was discovered during a conclave around 1590. Okay. Now, the first pope during the conclave, while they were deciding who the pope was going to be, it was around 1590, and it happened to be this one particular pope that discovered it during the conclave. And it says the motto for this guy that discovered this, I don't know if it was him himself that discovered it during the conclave, but there's a number of bishops that are often organized when they vote for the next pope. And during that time, when all these bishops were there, they discovered this St. Malachy Prophecy text in the Vatican Secret Archives. And it just so happened, the pope that won from this conclave, it says that he is the axle in the midst of the sign, meaning he's in the middle of the sign of the prophecy. So if you can even imagine that. So what this is saying is that it was lost, or not lost, but it was hidden in the Vatican Secret Archives for hundreds of years. The first moments it is discovered is when they're deciding the next pope, and the pope that's decided upon happens to be the one with the motto saying he's in the middle of the prophecy. That's what that means when it says the axle. So that sounds pretty divinely orchestrated if you think about it. Of course, you could just say, oh, it's just a weird coincidence. You could say, oh, they planned it. But here's the thing. This is where the historians get it wrong. So the historians go out and say that, well, there's no way. They come in with the assumption that there's no way that anyone would know the future. This is what I don't like about professional historians. They don't believe that anything can be predicted accurately because they don't believe there is such things as the gift to do that. So they just automatically assume this is impossible. So it must have been written later. This is their assumption. But here's the problem. If they discovered this in 1590 and the Pope himself believed it, it must be pretty old. You see what I'm getting at? So if it was in the Vatican Secret Archives, the Pope read it, he believed it, it must have some sort of veracity to it. It must be at least 100 years old, probably, bare minimum. Because how would he believe it? Like if someone just put a new one in there, it wouldn't look old. The document wouldn't look old. No one would believe it was old because it would look fake. But because they believed it, we can automatically add some age to it. Because no one's going to believe something that's obviously not the legit thing. When you look at, oh, this is a brand new piece of paper. It looks nothing like anything that during that time. You know what I mean? Like there's going to be some veracity to it. But historians never give that. They never give that. They always just assume, well, look, see, they predicted it right. It must be not true. It couldn't have happened. They must have just wrote it then. But that doesn't make any sense either. Why would the Pope believe it? Because it was just written. If it was just written, they would know that it was, you see what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. It's like illogical. But this is very common with professional historians. This is a very common assumption, which I think is just very inaccurate. At any rate, so I just wanted to get into that. So this was discovered in the midst of the prophecy, in the center, at the axle, meaning the center. And apparently his coat of arms had also an axle on it. So, of course, they didn't have cars back then, but they had, whatever you call them, pulled after behind a horse. I can't even think of the word. Whatever it's called. Carriage. That's the. We don't use carriages, so I don't really think about that word very much. But at any rate, you get the idea. So now, interestingly, so this document or this article that's talking about this 900-year-old or 1,000-year-old document is concluding that it must be the year 2027 when he comes back, talking about Jesus, because it was at the year 442 when this man took the helm as Pope. Right here. Oh, it's not there. There we go. Okay. Let's get on the screen a little bit better. So you can see here, this is the guy, Sixtus V, took the helm in 1585, right? That's 442 years after this prophecy was given. So if you add another 442 years to 1590, and this is the addition, or not, subtraction, whatever you call it, 442, and then you got here 1585 plus 442, the addition, 2027, right? However, what if they're not looking at it correctly? What if it's actually in the middle of the axle, which would be between 1585 and 1590? Let's say 1587 and a half, because that'd be 2.5 years. 1587 and a half, we'll just say 1587, even though it's going to be a little bit more complex than that. What would you get? You would get the number 444. Now that's very interesting because, of course, this number means something. And I'm going to get into that and actually a ton more. We're going to get into like the 3 days of darkness. We're going to get into actually a ton of stuff. But before we do so, I got to mention food supply. 25-year shelf life. Link is in the description. 3 months worth for $5.97. You're going to definitely get this considering all the wonderful things happening around us. I'm being sarcastic. Of course, the Gog Magog, invasion's next, by the way. You might want to have something just in case that happens. And according to how Revelation's written, that will happen before the end. And the end, according to this, would be between 2027 and 2032, based on how it reads. So you might want to be prepared. Link is in the description for that. Also, this book here, The Lost Ways, how your great-great-grandfather lived without electricity, how to build a cellar, do things around the house like they did in the good old days, hundreds of pages illustrated. You're going to definitely need that book before you have no electricity. There are a lot of things that could cause that. It's wise to have the book. You're not going to be able to buy it after the fact. They don't have it at Walmart. This is something that is sold online and almost no one sells it. I'm one of the main people that I'm probably about the only person that sells it on YouTube. Link is in the description, $37. Get the printed version, plus shipping. All right. Also, my website, GR Videos. If you like these deep dives, I get into a lot of other strange topics all over the place here. Link is in the description for that as well. At any rate, let's get back to the video. So, of course, 444 would be in the middle of the axle. In the middle of his serving as Pope, Sixtus V. You add 444 to 1587, you get 20. Technically, it would not be 2031 because, let me just explain because I'm doing very simplistic math here. 1587 in September, and this is 44.5 or 444.4 if you do it correctly because it's 2.5 years. So basically, it would be 2032 I can't really. I mean, I could go like this: 1587 point. What would that be? About 75 plus 444.5 equals what? 2032. So it'd be like March 2032, which, by the way, is exactly what a guy over here said it would be, March 18th, 2032. But I mean, we were just simplifying it. That's why I didn't add these weird 0.5s and stuff on there. But you get the idea. So basically 2032, I'll show you that in a second. But this number 444 has significance. It symbolizes change, completion, divine protection. You can see here change. So it's interesting because that's when they discovered it, right? Completion, you completed the first half of it. Guidance, showing you what's going to happen in the future. This makes perfect sense as the number. I'm not saying that's what it is, but, that's something that kind of adds to it. You got a guy here that analyzed it and came up with March 18th, 2032. Of course, again, you can see there's obviously leeway in here. It could be 2027. It could be 2032. We don't know the day or hour. We got sort of a range, but we don't have the day or hour. And of course, a lot of people in the comment, I already guarantee you there's going to be people in the comment section. You don't know the day or the hour. This isn't the day or the hour. This is the year. And we don't even know the year. It's between, I would say probably 2032, but it could easily be 2027 to 2032, somewhere in there. And actually, technically, you could even make it longer if you wanted to go to the end of it, which I kind of doubt that would be the case because that doesn't make any sense. So it'd probably be 2027 to 2032 as the range. Now, I asked Chat GPT about the 3 days of darkness. All right, if it was real, when would it theoretically happen? Right, this was what I asked Chat GPT, and of course, it talks about it being mystical, religious, apocalyptic traditions, people talking about this as a natural disaster, cosmic event, or divine intervention. And I thought it was very interesting that it put a super volcano as number one, because that is exactly what happened right before the Middle Ages. During the time of King Arthur and Merlin, just after their time, Merlin interpreted King Arthur's dream. He had a dream about two dragons fighting. I've talked about this numerous times on my channel. The red dragon versus the white dragon. The red dragon being evil, the white dragon being good. A lot of people are not aware, but God portrays himself in various texts in scripture, in Psalms and others, as a dragon, where it says he literally breathes fire. It doesn't say dragon, but it says he breathes fire. I don't know about you, but there's almost no mythical beast or animal of any sort that breathes fire other than a dragon. So, and there's also a number of other indications. You have the serpent on the pole that Moses had. That's a dragon. The word serpent is a dragon. It's a type of dragon. So at any rate, so you had the Book of Esther also had a chapter that was removed and put in the Apocrypha that talks about two dragons vying for power, of course, over the world. And it's for 500-year periods of time. And it just happened to be in around 1520 AD, or no, I'm sorry. I'm speaking completely wrong. 520 AD. 520 AD approximately. I can actually show you this. And I just don't want this video to be a million hours long, but I'm trying to do this really quickly. Trying to go through all this really quickly. So, King Arthur. When did he live? Right, here we go. 6th century. It doesn't even tell you the number. 500 something. 500 whatever. So he lived during 520 or 30 or whatever it was AD. And shortly after that, around 535, they had a super volcano go off. And that was when it moved. And he had a dream. Again, I told you he had a dream about two dragons warring. This is talking about the red dragon being over the earth for 500 years. Or will it be the white dragon? The white dragon being God, the red dragon being the devil. This is why it says in the New Testament, the devil is the god of this world. It actually says the god of this age. If you look at the Greek, the word world is aeon, or eon, where we get the word eon from, or age. It says the god of this age. The devil is the god of this age. And it happened to be, that was during the time of the red dragon. So you had, if you look at the Book of Esther, which was 500 BC, and I've talked about this a million times before, if you follow my channel, 500 BC to 0 AD was the white dragon. 0 AD to 500 AD was the red dragon. 500 AD to 1500 AD, the Middle Ages, was the white dragon, or a millennial kingdom, or 1,000 years. Then you have from 1500 AD, around King Henry the 7th, I can't remember, King Henry the something. From his time, I think it was the 7th, to now, it's been the red dragon. And just recently, it changed back to the white dragon. So when it changed back to the white dragon after King Arthur, 5 years after that, they had a super volcano go off. And we just changed from the red dragon to the white dragon just like they did. So it would make sense. You could have something like a super volcanic eruption that happened the last time, right before the Middle Ages. And it was actually dark for almost a half a year. The 3 days of darkness. You see what I'm getting at? How about 3 months of darkness, or 7 years of darkness, or, you know what I mean? So I'm just saying, like, obviously, well, with the super volcano, it would be like about a year of darkness, but you get what I'm saying. A large asteroid, that would be a potential solar storm. There's been a lot of talk about that recently. Matter of fact, they said there's going to be one this year. It's big. A lot of other astronomical events. I even had a dream recently about something happening in the space that it was really weird, my dream. I don't want to get into it all here, but basically something happened in space and everybody on Earth was freaking out. I don't know if it was prophetic or if it was just a weird dream. I don't know. But a lot of things like that could happen, or a human-made catastrophe, which could very easily be the case as well. A lot of people mentioned that also, like all the science that they're doing. Could they do something that really throws things off, causes 3 days of darkness? I have no clue, but that's potentially something that could cause it as well. So that's some stuff to think about for the future. At any rate, getting over here. So 3 days of darkness is a prophecy that describes a period of intense darkness that will cover the earth. Some believe these 3 days of darkness will occur this year. It's obviously going to be before he comes back. So if he's going to come back between 2027 and 2032, it's going to be between now and that, whatever that time is, right? So, and we have a lot of things that could happen in the earth that could very easily cause something like this to occur. Now, there was a movie that Stephen King made. What was the name of that movie? I'm trying to remember. I've mentioned it many times before on this channel. The Fog? No, is it called The Fog? The Mist. That's what it's called. Stephen King, The Mist. King, The Mist. And that's actually very similar to sort of the idea, because there's these monsters in the fog, and it happened to be some sort of military thing where they were doing some experiments and let something out, and there was this weird fog everywhere. There's a bunch of people in a supermarket trying to stay safe. If they go outside the supermarket, things get you. And that sounds very similar to kind of what a lot of people have said with regards to this 3 days of darkness. Could it be something like that? At any rate, so you get the idea. And actually, that's a really bizarre movie. I went and watched it again recently. I couldn't even, there's almost nothing in the store that looks familiar. Like, and they're in the store the entire time in the movie almost. And there's almost, you can't even know, there's not even one name brand that looks familiar almost in the entire store, which is very bizarre because the movie was only made, it was made in 2007. It wasn't like made 50 years ago. It was made in 2007, which is not even 20 years ago. And I couldn't even identify, there's like, I literally paused the movie and tried to, I was like, okay, I've never heard of this brand. Let me go look it up. And I'd find these brands and they're like discontinued brands. Like they shortly after that discontinued, like 2009 or 10, they were gone. But I literally couldn't find one brand that looked familiar at all. Almost in the entire movie. It's really bizarre. You should go check it out. At any rate, so there's that. But getting into some of these other things with regards to Pope Francis. And like I said, I'm going to be doing 2 videos here. So this is part 1 of this video. My other one's going to be on my second channel, God Rules 2. I'm not even halfway through my stuff here, but I'm going to talk about a little bit of this other stuff really quickly, and then I'm going to get into it more in depth on my other channel. But here you got this. The Pope blesses business plans. This is from the New York Times. 5 years ago, 4 years or 5 years, 2020. And who did he invite to this meeting? Let me show you this. Does this name look familiar? Roth, of course, child. Yes, indeed. So he made a deal with them. And if you understand, not the best history, let's just put it that way. So why is he working with them? That's a good question. Very good question, matter of fact. Of course, also they were building, and this was more about it. This actually describes kind of what it was about. If I can get it on the screen a little bit better. Proposed 21st century version of a socialist, of course, model for the economy. Very interesting. So that was something that he was working with them over back in 2020. Now, I've also mentioned that he's also got involved, apparently the Vatican's got involved with an AI Bible, which is really kind of strange as well. For the digital age, they got a picture of him holding something there, but I mean, we don't know much about the details. I looked through it and it just talks about them looking into it. It doesn't really tell you a lot. Then you have, of course, our history in the Protestant church, by the way, with regards to eschatology, what everyone believes today, like the whole Left Behind series, beam me out of here, Scotty, before it all gets bad, right? That whole thing. Guess who funded that? Guess who funded that? Oh, did you know? Oh, it's the same family. Oh, that's so weird. They're the ones that funded the entire thing. What everyone believes today in the Protestant church through Darby and Schofield. That's where all that came from. And I've covered where it's actually went wrong. That actually we're in a time that people don't realize. We're in the end time. We're not in the time before the 1,000 years. That already happened. We're in the time after that, way after that. We're at the final end, where it's all said and done. Books are opened. That's it. No more, folks. New heaven, new earth, new Jerusalem. That's where we're at. Okay. Now, what's interesting about the Pope, he went to Singapore last year, said all religions are a path to God. This clearly contradicts Scripture, very basic Scripture. It contradicts the King of Kings himself in John 14:6. I am the way, the truth, and the life. And of course, no one comes to the Father except through him. Right? So that's kind of strange. And look, and what day did he say it on? What day did he say it on? Yeah, I don't think it was September 13th. He arrived there on the 11th. Okay, let me show you something very interesting a lot of people don't know regarding that date. Guess who was born on that day? Oh, the King of Kings was born on that day. September, which day? Let me guess. It was 3 BC. Oh, it was in the 11th day. That's when he was born. That's using stellarium. You can actually see where all the stars aligned, and this is actually planets. They were called wandering stars in the ancient times. They all aligned on that day. You've heard that phrase before, the stars aligned for you. That's when he was born. All these planets aligned on that day, and you got the Revelation, of course, 12 sign. In the sky, she's giving birth. She had a crown of 12 stars. Leo doesn't have 12 stars in it, but when you add in the wandering stars, it becomes 12 stars on that day. And there is a serpent, a dragon at her feet. And I've shown this before many times. This is the serpent or the red dragon. Again, a lot of people just assume dragons have feet and wings. Actually, some do, some don't. If you look at ancient historical sources, some are no legs. You remember the one in the garden? That serpent, the dragon in the garden, he lost his legs. Look, this one lost his legs too. Oh, that's weird. So, of course, no legs. Some of them had wings, some had legs, some had no legs, some had no wings. Some literally look like snakes. And a lot of people are not even aware of this. But this is according to ancient historical sources describing what they were. I've talked about it before. Very ancient source. I think it's like, it's some historian. It's like a long time ago. I can't remember what year it was. I don't have it in front of me either. So, at any rate. So, Revelation 12 talks about what's being seen in the stars. Great sign appeared in the heaven. Woman clothed with the sun. Moon at her feet. She's clothed with the sun. Moon at her feet. Crown or garland of 12 stars. That's what's going on here. These are 12 stars of Leo because of these planets aligning and adding to it. Being with child, which by the way, I think it was Jupiter. Was it Jupiter? Something was revolving or moving inside her stomach during that time. And this only happened 2 times in history. It happened in 2017 and it happened 3 BC when he was born. So obviously it happened recently. It means that there's something big happening currently. And that's why we're seeing this change of recent. And like I said, I'm going to get in actually a ton more. I haven't even hardly got started. I've gotten past a lot, but I'm going to get into a lot more over my other channel. Kind of what some of you guys think. Let me know in the comment section below. And thanks for watching.